Hi everyone, market's continuing to grind here along this trend line. Let's take a look at some levels to see where we could be going next. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. Looking at fear and greed, we stepped up to a 61 from a 59. This continues to step up just slightly. We're starting to get into those regions where you can find tops, especially after a big decline like this. So we got the decline. We're getting back into this range here around that 60 to 65 area where you start to see tops and then a little bit of a downtrend. Not every time, but something to consider. We're in that range now. Still extreme greed on momentum. Strength and breadth continuing to step up just slightly, but not a lot. Put call ratio trending lower, back into neutral. Volatility trending lower. We've been talking about that one. And then safe haven demand pulling back into regular greed here, and then junk bonds really no change, still extreme greed. And then looking at Max Pain moved up to 585. Stock price also went up to 598, so still continuing to go higher on both of these. Really for the next couple days, still showing bearishness. Pretty decent cuts here for 7 days from now at 26 points. Obviously, I don't think that's going to happen, but you can see a little bit more green on the board now. 10 days, 11 days, up in the 670 area for Max Pain. This is kind of all over the board here now. Kind of swinging pretty wildly, but interesting to see that. Plus 12%, probably not going to happen. That would be absolutely bananas over the next 10 to 11 days. But are we going to see a dip before that? Maybe we see a slight rally back. Then you can see some pretty crazy numbers here for 2 weeks from now, down in the 460s. Those seem to be back on. So Max Pain seems to be all over the place. It was pretty reliable, but it seems less so here over the last couple days. Then quick look at markets as we head into the weekend. You can see grinding price action at the trend line. Technically it closed above it, so that's pretty bullish. If we get the push, the next trend is all the way up in the 614 area. So maybe that Max Pain that we saw is not completely out in left field. It seems like we could maybe get there. I don't know. We'll see. Right now, everything continues to look very bullish. We're almost overbought at a 69.23. Momentum bullish. Everything looks good. Was up about 0.43 on the day. So overall, continuing to look pretty good. In terms of levels, this is price discovery. We've been rocketing through all-time highs every single day, seemingly for the last 3 days. And your new all-time high is at 599.64. Let's go ahead and throw a level there just to give you something to work with that all-time high there. The other thing that's worth mentioning is you do have some gaps here. Gap left from the Wednesday to the Thursday, small gap here from Thursday to Friday. Obviously the massive one from Tuesday to Wednesday. So a bunch of gaps. Probably going to get filled at some time in the future, but timing is always the hard part, and we'll see how it plays out. Thought we would get that touch of the 600 level, ended up coming up just short of that. I think the actual S&P index did hit the 6,000, but the SPY came up just short. And then looking at the Tasty charts just for a moment, you can see we are right at that upper ATR band. That is at 597.76, so that's your current support. You can see the 8 EMA also sitting there, 596.07. Volume actually ramped into the end of the session, and that last candle was slightly bearish, so I don't know if that means anything. Sideways choppy still makes sense for the next couple days. Allow these indicators to kind of catch up to price action. Moving over to the NASDAQ here just for a moment, actually putting up the NDQ here, you can see we broke through this trend line here. This is what I was watching on this most recent upswing. We pushed right through that, and now we're hovering just above it. But jumping back down to the Qs, you can see if this structure is still going to hold, you could see some resistance up around 528. Maybe that's where we're headed. It's kind of hard to say. We've been watching this as a trading range here, but we kind of came to a point and then we broke out through there. So everything still looks bullish. Closing price 514. The new all-time high is 514.92. Definitely need to throw some levels on here. So we'll put one right there at the all-time high, 514.92. We'll see if we get above that. Right now, this is your resistance going into the end of the week. Momentum bullish, almost overbought at a 67.57. And then looking at the short time frames, you can see just came up short of that level, touched it here today, establishing the level. Sideways choppy, consolidation, 9 and 21 EMAs, as well as VWAP kind of consolidating here, a little bit of selling. Wouldn't shock me to see a little bit of pullback into the Monday, maybe Tuesday. Mondays don't usually have a ton of volume, but we'll see. Sideways choppy, maybe slightly bearish off of that level. If it breaks out, however, obviously still could push up to this trend here. Like I said, up in the 529 area. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow. The Russell was a little bit choppy on the session, but ended up holding up pretty good. 0.74, got above my level. 238.02 was the level, got above that and closed above it. Did pull back slightly after hours, but we'll see how that plays. Momentum bullish, obviously still overbought. Massive week here for the Russell. And it did close basically on the high. And then looking at the Dow, still cannot get into this trend line area. This is what we were looking for today. The price was just barely off of it, 442.10, 442, somewhere in there. And the high of day ended up being 441.70, so just off of it, but still looking at this as a zone of resistance. Momentum still bullish, RSI still bullish, and a key area of resistance really for both of these. Moving over to BABA and LULU. I got asked about BABA, so let's take a look at it. You can see this kind of grinding structure here. Got a huge jump on the China stock move, and since then everything's kind of been downtrending. Big move down here as well, 6%. I would not touch this until I got into this trend line here around 90.20. I think we're probably going to touch that. Momentum back to bearish, RSI breaking down, volume big, everything's continuing to sell here. So probably going to pull back some more, another $3 or so, and then we'll see what happens. If it breaks through there, the 144 is the next level at 84.72. And then I did want to highlight LULU because this has been in a kind of similar move, but prior to this kind of massive move up. It's been in this grinding price action, tried to break out, retesting the level. If this holds here at my level 307.95, this could be a pretty good move. Push through here, hit the trend, 200 SMA there at 332.50. If it breaks through there, this is a stock that has been beaten down and could absolutely regain some of this momentum on this discretionary push we've been seeing. So another consideration there. Something to watch. 337.95 is the level. If it can hold that, I think we're going to be in good shape. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft, these were actually both down on the day, 0.23 and 0.68. Apple hovering right at the 55 EMA at 226.90, closed above it. Still above it after hours, but falling slightly. Momentum still okay. RSI being key resistance. We talked about this yesterday. We talked about this being a key zone. It is rejecting off of it right now. If this accelerates back down, that's going to be interesting. And then looking at Microsoft, this is actually kind of the inverse style move here. So we got the breakout retest. If it holds here, we could see an acceleration up. And that's kind of what we're seeing really with the breakout retest. Got some trend lines, got some EMAs and SMAs in here as support. If it holds in here, I think we're going to push to 429.88. And then momentum still bullish. If this holds, I think we could see a slight acceleration on Microsoft, potentially push back into the 440 area. Moving over to Tesla and NVDA. Tesla was a rocket ship here today, 8.19%, massive move, gap and go on the day, broke through the levels, 103.93 was the target if this trend broke, and sure enough it did. Next level was 313.80, and then I had to add some levels here, 324.47, that was your current resistance, and then above that, if it breaks another level, that's going to be 336.21 is your next target, and then the trend up here, 343.35, massive move, huge volume, good momentum, everything looks good. Again, I've talked about this in a short. I don't know if Tesla's really going to benefit that much from a Trump presidency, but right now people seem to think that it will. And then looking at NVIDIA, is down slightly on the day, far less exciting, inside candle. Maybe you see a little bit of pullback, maybe sideways consolidation. If it does, probably the high from this here, probably need to add a level there. Right there at 144.42 at the high of this candle here, 22 October. So that's your current support. If that breaks down, the next level is that 140.76 level. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, you got staples rallying pretty aggressive, 1.21%, and then discretionaries as well, 1.42% here today. Wicked a new all-time high, and it is a new all-time high close there. The high was 216.27. My level was 215.06. That was the previous all-time high. So we did close above it, just barely 215.12. We'll see if that can continue. Momentum bullish, obviously super overbought. But the more interesting thing here is that staples starting to regain some strength while discretionary is hitting some key levels. Maybe we see a little bit of a flip here where staples gain some strength and discretionaries pull back a little bit. Just something to consider after being so extended over the last 3 days. Moving over to breadth. Breadth did go higher, but not by a whole lot. We're in this same range we've been in for a while. Still well below 68.14 on the 20-day. And then the trend resistance here for the 50, up around 68.10, right now 64.61. You could argue maybe we touch this level here from 7 and 8 October, finding some resistance in that zone. I don't keep that as a level. My level is 62.25, so right now still bullish, but showing some area of resistance here. You can see that same level here as well from the 22-23 October area, so maybe this is a zone of resistance, again, getting into some key levels. I would expect at least one more push, hit these levels in here, and then break down. Right now, everything still looks good. Momentum bullish, RSI still bullish. Moving over to the dollar established a lower high here today. You can see big rally up, big strong candles, big wick rejection starting to sell off. Didn't quite hit the trend line there. Lower high setup from this previous high. Want to see this reject a little bit more here over the next coming days. Momentum basically flat. RSI still well below it as this starts to trend down. Want to see this pull back and give equities a little bit of strength. If it continues to hover or gain some strength, that's going to be pretty bearish for equities in my opinion. Moving over to bonds, J&K continues to run really aggressive. 0.22, clean breakout yesterday, clean continuation, gap and go, momentum bullish, huge volume. Everyone continues to be risk on in markets, so this arguably says we should continue to go higher. Looking for a 97.69 touch. And then TLT, another strong day, but still cannot get to that 92.82 level. I'm watching for the break of the 93 level. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish. I still think it'll go, but we're still in this consolidation. Want to see this clean break, get this kind of continuation run. For me, that would be a low, higher low. And then we should see a higher high somewhere, which could be pretty aggressive. That's one of those longer term style moves. So watching for TLT, I think it's going to go, but we just haven't seen it move quite yet. And then moving over here to the VIX, you can see the VIX did hit the level there at 1470. The low of day was 1466. So we touched the area of support that we've been watching, finally touched it after 3 days of falling. We'll see if this ends up holding at all. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. If it breaks, probably headed back into this zone here around the 1275 area. But for now, critical support, momentum starting to slow. We're also seeing equities start to slow at some zones of resistance. Is this an initial indicator of at least a short-term pullback? Seems possible. Moving over to my accounts, I did pretty well, made a couple $100 on the day, considering that markets were generally flat. In terms of positions, I rolled out here to 238 for the Monday for about $1 credit. That did fall just slightly, but not a whole lot. And then looking at the Qs, didn't change anything there. Still $5.50 for the end of next week for $10 credit. So max profit there is $5.15, and that's basically where we're at already. Again, I think there's some zones of resistance that could be interesting here where we could start to see markets fall a little bit. But either way, still very well protected on the Qs. And then IWM, I'll be watching that one closely. And I'll take this off if we start to see markets fill some of those gaps to the downside. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of markets. Are you starting to take a little bit of risk off the table, or are you still full steam ahead? Definitely let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.